So welcome everybody to the next in line of our Zoom months. And this month we're delighted to come a little bit closer to home to the Mediterranean Sea area, making sure we absolutely mention the Adriatic this evening, because it's not all Med, it's Adriatic as well. My name's Melissa. I'm the founder of Charitable Travel. And for those that haven't joined us before, I wanted to tell you a little bit about Charitable Travel. We're a social enterprise travel agency, which makes us a little bit different. We, whenever you book a holiday with us, you can make a donation equivalent to 5% of your holiday price to the charity of your choice. And once you've made that donation, you then have a 5% discount taken off your holiday price, so the donation hasn't cost you anything. And so we were set up as a not-for-profit profit entirely to support, through travel, the charity sector. I'm obviously a genius because I set up a travel company at the beginning of a pandemic. We've been operating since April last year. So we haven't known anything other than the pandemic, but despite that, we've still had really good support and bookings coming through, both for 2022, for later on in the year, and also for staycations. So tonight I wanted to firstly welcome Daria from the Croatian National Tourist Office, and also Peter and Louise from Visit Malta, who have kindly agreed to join us this evening to tell us about their amazing destinations. And although we're still waiting for the magical traffic lights to turn green everywhere, hopefully this evening it will really inspire you to consider where to go on holiday and consider both Croatia and Malta as post-pandemic escapes, because I think all of us really want an escape. The other thing I wanted to say is that we're also running a little quiz related to the presentations tonight. So please do listen carefully, because the answers to the quiz questions will be scattered through the presentations. And we're offering a nice prize of a snack surprise box, which will be from some mysterious destination around the world. Snacks from that place will arrive to the lucky winner's door for sweet treats one day in the near future. So without further ado, thank you very much. Daria is going to go first. If everyone else would be kind enough to turn their cameras off and their sound off, and then I shall open up Daria's presentation and hand over to her. I'm just going to do that now. Hopefully you can all see that. And then I'll just go onto full screen.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you, Daria.
Thank you, Melissa, for inviting us to join this event, and thanks everyone for attending, and welcome to the story about Croatia. Can we have the next slide? So Croatia is located in the heart of Europe. It is a small but highly geographically diverse dragon-shaped country. Next slide, please. The population is just over 4 million, so it's quite a small country. The climate is moderate continental and Mediterranean along the coast. The capital city is Zagreb. Official language is Croatian, but English is very widely spoken, so you will get by pretty much anywhere around Croatia speaking English. The official currency is Croatian kuna. £1 will give you about 8 to 9 Croatian kunas. And in terms of time difference, Croatia is 1 hour ahead of the UK. Next, please. As I mentioned, Croatia is located in the heart of Europe on the eastern coast of the Adriatic Sea. It's accessible by road, sea, rail, and of course air. So from the UK, there are flights serving 5 different airports in Croatia. So in Zagreb, Pula in Istria, Zadar and Split in Dalmatia, and Dubrovnik further down south the coast. Next, please. We're going to go through some highlights. Obviously, we have a limited time, so we're going to run through highlights of Croatian tourist product, as well as 3 most popular coastal regions of Croatia. Croatia is really beautiful, has a lot of natural and cultural heritage. And when it comes to nature, Croatia actually has the highest percentage of protected areas of any single country in Europe. Croatia actually has in total 8 national parks and 12 parks of nature. So overall combined areas give about 10% of the overall surface of Croatia that is actually protected areas. Some of these national parks are very well known. For example, Plitvice Lakes National Park is one of the most popular with travelers. Then there's Krka National Park and Krka Waterfalls in the Šibenik region. And Kornati National Park, which is an archipelago of islands just off the coast of Šibenik, which is very, very popular with sailors. And then there's further down south, Mljet National Park, which is only a few hours away off the coast of Dubrovnik. Next, please. Croatia is also full of World Heritage sites. It's got 10 UNESCO World Heritage sites scattered across the country. Some of them, again, are very, very popular and very well known. For example, Diocletian's Palace in the medieval Split. Then the very, very famous Dubrovnik Old Town, historical core of the city of Trogir, which is only about half an hour drive from the city of Split. Plitvice Lakes National Park as well, very, very touristy, very, very popular, but it's also protected as UNESCO's World Heritage Site. And then there's, of course, St. James Cathedral in Šibenik and Starigrad Plain on the island of Hvar, which are very popular and some of the must-see landmarks in Croatia. Next slide, please. When it comes to intangible cultural heritage, Croatia is the 4th in the world in the number of intangible cultural heritage items listed on UNESCO's list. So those are usually traditional, certain traditions, or for example, a traditional type of singing and dancing that is performed across Croatia. Then there's lace making, particular lace making technique from the island of Pag. For example, you can visit island of Pag and enjoy a lace making experience or workshop. And then there's, for example, art of dry stone walling, knowledge and techniques that's also been protected as intangible cultural heritage. Next, please. Croatia is probably still mostly known and mostly popular because of its long and beautiful indented coast. The coast has up to 300 sunny days per year, and because it is so highly indented, it does boast some of the most beautiful beaches in the world. And although there are quite a lot of sandy beaches in Croatia, the majority of beaches are made out of really, really fine pebbles and shingles. But regardless of that, wherever you go, you will see scenery just like you can see now on your screen, with beautiful nature surrounding you and crystal clear waters everywhere. Next slide, please. Croatia also boasts over 1,200 islands overall. Not all of them are inhabited, but the majority of them are still accessible by boat. So if you're staying somewhere along the coast, or if you're staying somewhere on some of the bigger islands, you can still either do a day excursion or a boat trip to some of the more secluded islands and have a really authentic day in nature and have a really unique surroundings. Next slide, please. And for those who prefer a little bit more adrenaline during their holidays, there's plenty of locations across Croatia, especially on the coast, where you can enjoy activities such as diving, cycling, paragliding, rafting, hiking, or bungee jumping, zip lining, really whatever level of activity you'd prefer. There's pretty much a location in Croatia where you can do these activities. Next slide, please. And Croatia also overall has 25 products with the EU protected designation of origin. It is famous for many award-winning olive oils and wines, and it's home to the largest white truffle in the world, which was actually found in 2010, and it weighed just over 1 kilo. Next slide, please. So moving on to the coastal regions we'll be covering today, Istria is in the northwest of the country, bordering Italy and Slovenia. Next slide, please. Istria claims the smallest town in the world, called Hum, but also the whole of Istria is full of these small medieval towns, and the whole scenery of the inland Istria is full of these like little hills. It's riddled in vineyards and olive groves. So places like Motovun, Grožnjan, Završje, Oprtalj are really like small little hidden gems on the inland Istria that you have to visit. Next slide, please. There are pieces of history left behind everywhere across Istria, from the amphitheater and the Golden Gate in Pula that you see on the screen, to Kažun theme park, for example. Even the streets and squares of towns like Vrsar, Rovinj, and Svetvinčanat tell some amazing historical stories. Next slide, please. This region in particular is famous for truffles, or wine, and olive oil. So it's also known as a sort of foodie destination in Croatia. So when you're there, you must certainly try some homemade pasta, homemade fuji that you see on the screen, with some truffles and olive oil. Next slide, please. And when you're in Istria, you must definitely see at least one of the 3 natural jewels of Istria, such as the Brijuni National Park. This is one of the islands belonging to the Brijuni National Parks, or Premantura and the Lim Bay Nature Reserves. Next slide, please. We're moving down to Split. Split is located in the region called Dalmatia, Central Dalmatia. Next slide, please. Split actually developed from a palace. So in the year 305, the world's then most powerful man, Roman Emperor Diocletian, chose to build his home in the heart of the region of Dalmatia, setting the first stones in the place for future city of Split. So what you see on the screen is the peristyle square within the Diocletian's palace. So everywhere you go, really, in Split, in the city center, you will be actually walking within the Diocletian's palace. The whole of city center core is stunning. It's absolutely, it's a historical building. It's protected as UNESCO's World Heritage Site, and it's definitely worth to spend a couple of days just exploring the city of Split. Even though as well, Split is a major port. So if you were to go to any of the islands in the region or further down south, or if you want to catch coach to somewhere along the coast, you will definitely need to go through Split. So if you take a ferry, for example, from Split to the nearby Brač Island, you can enjoy the stunning warm waters of the Adriatic Sea, and it's a great way to experience Croatia's lovely coastline. You can spend the day on the beach called Zlatni Rat Beach on the island of Brač, in the town of called Bol. This beach is popular for its unique shape and it's great for water sports. Now, what's characteristic of its shape is that the tip of this horn actually changes shape depending on the currents and the winds. So sometimes it's a little bit more curled up to the left, or sometimes it's curled to the right, depending on the current. It's very, very popular with windsurfers. It's popular for water sports, but it's very family friendly as well. The whole town of Bol has many restaurants, and it has a kids park as well, so it's great for kids. The inland villages and the coastal tracks of the whole of the island of Brač are perfect for cycling excursions, and the roads are quiet and very safe, and you can discover pine forests, coastal paths, and secluded swimming spots along the way. Next slide, please. When you're in the region, you definitely should try fresh fish along the coastal area. You can try some of the award-winning olive oils, but also make sure you try pašticada and arambašići, which are traditional meat dishes from the region's inland. Next slide, please. Split is also home to the Ultra Europe Music Festival in the normal days. The whole region is actually full of interesting events like Fisherman Village fiestas and the specific a cappella singing kind of gatherings, which is very traditional type of singing. But also in Split, throughout summer, there is this festival called Split Summer Festival, which essentially is a month full of open-air theater performances from ballets, operas, proper theater plays, everything happening out in the open, and the Split city center becomes this big open-air stage. So it's a great time to visit. Moving down to Dubrovnik, which is last but definitely not least. Dubrovnik is one of the most popular destinations in Croatia, especially for the British travelers. Besides the city of Dubrovnik itself, the whole region actually has so many different hidden gems to explore. One of them are the town walls of Ston. Ston is a little town on the peninsula of Pelješac, just about an hour away from Dubrovnik city. And the town walls of Ston are known as the European Wall of China, dating from the 14th century, unique due to the length of 5.5 kilometers, monumental size, and the defense structures along the wall. Dubrovnik itself is also known as the Pearl of the Adriatic, and it's also used as a set for King's Landing in the famous TV series Game of Thrones. It is also protected as UNESCO's World Heritage Site. It is considered to be one of the most beautiful of all Mediterranean towns, for sightseeing especially, shopping in ancient streets, and walking along city walls. You can walk down Stradun, Old Town's main street and promenade, or another option is to go with a small walking tour of Old Town Dubrovnik. You can hire a local guide that can guide you through the area and give you some great info and introduction to the history of the city. You can also go up the Dubrovnik cable car for a bird's eye view of Dubrovnik. So this what you see on your screen is sort of what you would see from the top of the Mount Surge that you reach with Dubrovnik cable car. It's only a short ride, about 5-minute ride up the cable car, but you will enjoy some amazing views. Recommendation is go there just before sunset so that you capture some amazing photos of Dubrovnik. You can also take an optional boat ride to some of the islands in the vicinity. But what you must try is dinga wine from the Pelješac Peninsula. That are authentic to the region, and mandarins from the Neretva Valley. You can even join in for the mandarin and grape harvests and be a part of this amazing tradition. Next slide, please. And the islands surrounding Dubrovnik are definitely worth a visit if you're staying for a longer time. You can spend a day on the island of Korčula, just off the coast of Dubrovnik, which is also known as the birthplace of Marco Polo, or you can visit the island of Mljet that you see on your screen, which is home to Mljet National Park. So 1/3 of the whole of the island is the national park, with 2 saltwater lakes and a Benedictine monastery set on the little island just in the middle of the lakes. You can swim in the lakes, enjoy and sunbathe on the beaches, or you can hire a bike and cycle around the lakes. Either way, it's a wonderful way to experience Mljet. Mljet is a little bit less known or less touristy than some other parts of the region, so it's definitely recommended to visit. And to finish off, we'll just like to play a short promo video of Croatia.
You feel empty.
Wow. Daria, thank you so much. That I don't really know where to begin summing up Croatia, because every time I see a presentation about Croatia, or see or go through the website or go through our website, there's just a completely different aspect. And I've only had the pleasure of visiting Istria and Zadar before, so I just, there's so much more to explore, and thank you so much for bringing it alive.
My pleasure. It is a very, very diverse destination, so everyone will find something for them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If you'd like to stay for the Malta presentation, Daria, at the end we'll see if there's any Q&A time, if you can stay, and we'll come back with some questions. I've got a couple stored up already that I'm thinking about. So thank you, Daria. And next up we have Peter and Louise from Malta joining us. Now, every destination we ever have on our Zoom months is always a hard act to follow, but then every destination has got such different characters. So I'm really looking forward to hearing all about Malta. So over to you guys. I'll just bring up your presentation.
Yeah, that is definitely going to be a hard act to follow. That was a fabulous presentation. So we'll do our best.
Great. Here we go. Over to you guys.
Perfect. Cool. So thank you, Melissa, and good evening to everyone. And thank you for taking the time to be here with us today. And obviously a massive thank you to Charitable Travel for hosting this lovely event. Today, Louise and I will be taking you through the Maltese archipelago and her islands as we discover all parts that make this an ideal year-round holiday destination, from the history of the islands to the culture that defines Malta as one of the friendliest countries in Europe. And it really makes this a one-stop shop for all ages and demographics. And I'm just going to start by addressing, obviously, the potential issue that's on everyone's mind with the current ongoing situation. So our wonderful island nation is leading the way in Europe for vaccine distribution, and it has one of the lowest cases per population to be found. And as it stands, we only have 70 active cases across the island, with the daily recovery numbers being higher than the new case numbers. Alongside this, we've also vaccinated 80% of our population with their first doses, the first country in Europe to reach the recognized herd immunity level. And furthermore, we've also fully vaccinated, so that's both doses, over 50% of our population to date. So hopefully when that next green list announcement comes, we will be there. Next slide. So the Republic of Malta, as it's officially known, consists of 3 islands. So we have Malta, we have the smaller island of Gozo, and the wee island of Camino, and together they make up the Maltese archipelago. And each island has its own identity and its own touristic offering. And there's a real sense of comfort here, as Malta was an ex-British colony. So wandering its streets, you'll still to this day find the red telephone boxes and post boxes. And actually one of the 2 official languages is English, meaning that gathering information or mixing with the locals comes with a real sense of ease. And as we'll come to learn, the history of the islands is expansive and dates back over 7,000 years. And such is the mixing pot of cultures and heritage here that Valletta was named the 2018 European City of Culture, which drew record numbers to what is officially the sunniest capital city of Europe, boasting over 300 days of sunshine each year. And all this is just a short 3-hour flight from the UK, or just over 3.5 hours from Ireland. Next, please. So from so last week, a ceremony was held in Malta celebrating the status of 11 selected beaches around the islands that had attained the prestigious Blue Flag Award. And whilst Malta is not traditionally a beach destination, especially when you compare it to the likes of maybe the Algarve or the Costas of Spain, this small country certainly holds its own with an abundance of man-made bays, perch beaches, and its golden sands, the latter of which can be found in the north of the island and on the island of Gozo. So we have Melia Bay, which is the largest blue flag beach in Malta, next to the tranquil town of Melia, with some lovely family-friendly hotels that are basically beachfront. We also have Ramla Bay, which is one of the most photographed beaches of Malta, found on the north side of Gozo with its wide stretch of red sand. And we also have the Blue Lagoon, which is one of the most visited beaches and swimming points of the islands, in between Gozo and Camino. And it does become incredibly busy during the summer months. So like my top tip to you would be to get one of the first boats out to it in the morning to ensure a peaceful morning amongst the clear emerald waters. Next slide, please. So from the sights and sounds of Malta and the nature and history of Gozo, and then the tranquility of Camino, you can really escape the beaten path and explore the varying sights of each island has to offer. For those that want to stretch their sea legs, you can head to the water and enjoy the crystalline seascapes of Camino. You can sail the short distance to the island of Gozo and discover this idyllic step back in time. Explore the Gigantia temples. You can meander the streets of Victoria, the capital of the island Gozo, and it's also home to the Gozatan wine, which is famous and Louise will come to a little bit later on. And if your resort doesn't have enough for you to do, which we doubt, but you never know, then you can hop aboard one of the plentiful boats and take you to either some of the other coastal towns and cities, or even just enjoy a day on board, taking around the circumference of the island and taking in the cityscapes and the picturesque coastline. Next slide, please. So there is an abundance of activities that you can undertake whilst on holiday in Malta, from the historical sites of the island to the UNESCO World Heritage Sites. You can experience scuba diving, snorkeling, horseback riding, the boat tours as we've seen, walking tours, cheese making and glass blowing workshops, some of those cultural workshops. And you can also discover the film heritage of the islands, where many blockbuster films, including Troy, Gladiator, and the Robin Williams film Popeye that we can see in the picture there, have been filmed. You can enjoy a tour from the viewpoint of a traditional fishing boat as you sail the harbour, or the scenic countryside from a Segway, or you can maybe take in the Rolling Geeks tour that we can see in the top right picture there, which is a self-drive audio tour of the 3 cities opposite Valletta. And I mean, if I had all day, I could talk all day about all the activities, but I'm just going to touch on a few more on the next slide here. So in 2021, Visit Malta actually joined ATAS, the Association of Touring and Adventure Suppliers, in response to our flourishing activity-based tourism market that the islands have to offer. So firstly, it's well known that Malta is the #1 dive site dive destination in Europe, and consistently voted the #2 dive destination worldwide. And that's not only a professional opinion, but also a personal one of mine, because I actually learned to dive in Malta. And having dived elsewhere in the world, it's still one of my favorite experiences and locations to go. Alongside this, other activities have begun to flourish on the islands. Gozo has become one of the most recognized locations for rock climbing and abseiling, with over 300 local spots, which vary in difficulty from absolute beginner to the more extreme and difficult rock faces. And some of the more unique ways to see the island in recent years that's come out of the rise in popularity is the such of kayaking or even stand-up paddleboarding. Many of the water sports centers on the island have started to offer these alongside their scuba diving options. And maybe for those that want to stay above the waves and stay on land, Malta has plenty to offer. Again, the jeeps and the quad bike tours. We have tuk-tuk tours. There's a real strong burgeoning cycling scene, which ranges from the gentle coastline trails to the more intense mountain biking trails, which take in the dramatic cliff tops over the west of the island and on the island of Gozo. And again, a top tip for you is that road cycling is actually really easy to navigate, given that the Maltese actually drive on the left-hand side of the road, same as they do here in the UK. And maybe something a little bit different, given its location in the Mediterranean, you might not associate Malta as potentially a surfing option, but nonetheless, the swells are determined by the varying wind currents that rise up from Africa, and they create an abundance of various breaks, perfect for your surfing, your kiteboarding, your windsurfing, and that's especially in the areas of Golden Bay and St. Thomas. Next slide, please. You might be able to tell that was a short video about some of our lovely activities that we have on the island. And also, when searching for a villa holiday, Malta is probably not the first country that comes to mind, but a flourishing scene is developing in Malta, specifically on the island of Gozo. And given the forecasted trend of what's called bubble holidays, those households that formed a bubble during the pandemic, and the rise in multi-generational holidays, these types of accommodations will be key. So we have traditional farmhouses all the way up through to contemporary villas, and everything from small one-bedroom accommodations through to large 6 or 7 bedroom properties, and there's literally something for everyone. And most of the properties come with the basic necessities that you would expect of a villa holiday. Your pool, your patio area, barbecue facilities, parking for those that wish to hire a car, your fully equipped kitchens, and many of them offer your terraces, balconies, and even rooftop lounging areas. And I'm now going to hand you over to Louise, who's going to go a little bit into further detail about the history, the heritage, and the culture of the island. So over to you, Louise.
Thank you, Peter. So if we go to the next slide, please. So as Peter was saying, the Maltese Islands have a very colorful history. The previous slide before this, and I think we've gone over the previous one again, please. There we go. Thank you. So here we can see some of the megalithic temples, of which there are 7 on the islands. And the prehistoric temples, which are found on Malta and Gozo, are amongst the oldest and best preserved temples in the world. The ones that we can see here on the right are the Gigantia temples found in Gozo. And these temples date back to around 3,600 years BC, and they predate the Egyptian pyramids and Stonehenge by 1,000 years. And Gozetins used to believe that these temples were built by giants due to the impressively large boulders which were used to build these temples. In fact, the name Gigantia comes from the word giant in Maltese. And on the left, we can see the Hypogeum. This is a subterranean structure which dates back to the period of 4,000 years BC. And the Hypogeum was discovered in 1902 quite by chance, when work was being done on a new housing development. And when they started the excavation of the process of this temple, they unearthed various bones, statuettes, pottery, and artifacts. And it's also believed that close to 7,000 bodies were buried inside the hypogeum. Now, the hypogeum is open to a very limited number of visitors per day to ensure the preservation of the temple. So we always recommend that if you do wish to visit, to book even up to 2 months in advance. The next slide, please. Thank you. So Valletta, our capital city, is a UNESCO World Heritage Site in its entirety. And it's very well known for all its incredible churches, museums, palaces, and all of these features have earned Valletta the name of an open-air museum. It's steeped in history and is the perfect fusion of historical buildings and modern architecture. And what makes Valletta so unique are some of the charming features. For example, the houses, which have brightly painted ornate wooden balconies, which are called gallerie in Maltese, and they really add to the character of the city. These are the ones that you can see in the bottom images there. And Valletta is small enough to walk around and discover all the highlights at your own pace. It's great for those who are interested in arts and history, theater, shopping. If you need a caffeine fix, as there are plenty of quirky cafes, bar hopping and sampling some great food. There are a variety of excellent restaurants, and they range from small hole-in-the-wall restaurants to fine dining establishments, and most of them have sea views as well. In fact, Valletta is also home to 3 Michelin star restaurants. And in comparison to other cities, Valletta is fairly inexpensive. And in terms of accommodation, there are options of 5-star hotels or 4-star, but more unique are the quaint boutique hotels, which are converted historical palazzos. And these were actually the homes of the knights who built the city back in the 16th century. Now, with Valletta being built on a strip between 2 harbors, you can take a short boat ride to the 3 cities across the harbor. And this trio of cities have maintained their authenticity, and they are definitely worth a visit. And on the opposite side of the harbor, you can take a boat ride to Slema, which is a vibrant town and a very popular tourist location. And also more recently, you can also take a ferry directly from Valletta, the city, to Gozo, the smaller sister island from Valletta itself. And in the next slide, I have a short video that I'd like to share with you, as I think it captures some of the beauty of the city. If we go to the next slide, thank you. Now, speaking of cities, Mdina is Malta's ancient capital city. It's a stunning fortified city which sits on a hilltop and has panoramic views across the island from all directions. Stepping into the gates of Mdina is like stepping back in time. In fact, Mdina is referred to as the Silent City, as only around 250 residents live within the city walls. Mdina has a claim to fame as being the filming location for King's Landing, for those of you who are familiar with Game of Thrones. And it's also famed for its association with St. Paul the Apostle, who was shipwrecked on the islands back in 60 AD. And after the wreck, St. Paul's lived outside Mdina in the neighboring town of Rabat. And you can still visit St. Paul's Grotto today, which is just beneath a beautiful church, also named after St. Paul. Moving on to the next slide, the Maltese cuisine tells the story of our history and is essentially a fusion of Mediterranean, North African, Italian, French, and British influences. And gastronomy is at the heart of Maltese culture, revolving around sharing and celebrations. And some of our traditional dishes are stewed or fried rabbit. We have lampuki, which is a type of fish which migrates through the Maltese waters between August and December. And it's one of the most popular traditional Maltese dishes during autumn time. And this is typically served as a pie, grilled or fried with a variety of sauces. And a couple of staple items in the Maltese cuisine are the local bread, which is considered part of our cultural identity. It has a unique taste and is unlike any other bread in the world. And traditionally baked hopstal malti has a hard and crunchy crust on the outside and soft and fluffy white bread on the inside. And you can sample this from all the bakeries serving freshly baked bread, and of course all the restaurants. And pastizzi, which we can see here on the right, are also a staple in our cuisine. And they have a flaky savory pastry, which is indigenous to Malta. And they have a filling of either ricotta or mushy peas. And every village has a pasticceria shop, which is usually a hole in the wall with a counter at the entrance. And we always recommend that anybody visiting the island must try both varieties. Everybody loves pastizzi. Now, moving on to the next slide. No Mediterranean meal is complete without a delicious glass of local wine. And the grapes that grow in Malta's hot and humid climate ripen much quicker and produce some excellent wines. And aside from the international grape varieties, we also have the indigenous varieties, the Giallosa and Gargantina. And since there is never enough in production left for exporting, you will actually need to visit the island to try to sample some of these delicious wines. The main wineries organize guided tours and tastings, and there are also a number of wine festivals as part of our events calendar. Beer is also very popular, and the most popular one is the Lager, which is locally brewed. And then the local soft drink is skinny, and this is made from local bitter oranges mixed with herbs and spices, and best served with ice and a slice of orange. Now, to conclude this presentation, in the next slide, we have a gastronomy trail that I'd like to share with you. And these trails were created by our marketing team to help to showcase all that the Maltese Islands have to offer. And there are a number of these themed videos which you can find on YouTube, from adventure, history, pilgrimage, and gastronomy. So if you just, Melissa, wouldn't mind just clicking at the bottom of the, just towards the bottom of the screen. Yeah, there we go.
I'm just going to play that again because I understand you couldn't see the video.
Great, thank you. Thank you. And again, thank you, Melissa, for having us. That's the end of our presentation.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's incredible. It wasn't planned this way, but the focus on for both Croatia and Malta on protecting heritage. Aside from beautiful beaches, great food, the protection and the history in both destinations is quite incredible. We're a member of the World Travel Association for Culture and Heritage, and super important to us as a social enterprise that those incredible sort of intangible but also tangible heritage sites are protected for future generations, and it looks like both destinations are really doing that and making them available as well for tourists in a controlled way, but to protect them, but also to enable that at the same time as going to the destination. So fantastic. Thank you, Louise, Peter, Daria, for your presentations this evening. I have questions already. Sorry for the glitches, by the way, Louise, on the video not showing. Kind of what I see and what everyone else sees sometimes on Zoom is different. So
no worries at all.
So Sarah's asking a question about, she's not so much held up on the need to travel during school holidays, and wonders if autumn, as we open up, particularly after the pandemic and the traffic lights, whether autumn is a good time to travel. Is everything open? Is there any restrictions or challenges for both destinations, maybe starting with Croatia?
Yeah, so I would say autumn is actually a wonderful time to visit, like late September, October, because the weather will still be nice and warm, really balmy. You won't have the summer crowds and you won't have that peak summer heat either, but the water as well is still going to be warm, so actually it's the perfect time to travel. Another really great time to travel if you want to avoid the crowds is early May. So throughout May, early June is wonderful as well. Not too hot and not too crowded.
Great. And does the same apply in Malta?
I think we're very similar Mediterranean countries. Likewise, it's a year-round destination, and I agree with Daria that outside the kind of peak summer season, it's actually a great time to be in these Mediterranean islands because it's not as crowded. The climate is a little bit milder, but it's still great to enjoy outdoor activities. So I would definitely recommend kind of October and May as well are great months. And we've also got, a huge events calendar throughout the year, obviously, when outside of the COVID time. So there are always events happening, even after the summer season.
Oh, great. I thought as much, and that's a really, as you say, to avoid the sort of the crowds that they're sure to be in the busier times in summer. That's really reassuring. I had a question about rental cars, and so firstly to Daria, thinking of the diversity of Croatia, I know when I went to Istria, I took a rental car and it was really, really good to be able to drive around the region. Is fly drive a viable thing to do in Croatia?
Oh, absolutely. It's actually one of the best ways to see the country. One of the most, what is known as one of the most stunning scenic routes in the Mediterranean is actually the Adriatic highway that goes along the coast of Croatia all the way down to Dubrovnik. So especially from Split to the drive from Split to Dubrovnik is absolutely stunning. And then obviously it It will take you about 5.5 hours to get from Split to Dubrovnik, but you will be able to stop along the coast, visit some amazing villages along the way, have some amazing photo opportunities as well, because you're overlooking really the coast of Croatia and all the islands just off the coast. And it really gives you, I mean, having a car and being able to do things at your own pace then gives you gives you the opportunity to change your itinerary as well at a very last minute and just kind of explore something off the itinerary.
And signage in Croatia, is that designed for tourists as well?
More recently, more and more things are. I would say the main signs are still majority in Croatian, but it's not really kind of, those are like names of landmarks and things like that would be universal, so it will be the same. But as I mentioned, in Croatia really the majority of people speak English very well, so it's easy to ask for that.
That was my experience. I agree. And I must put in a word for truffle ice cream in Istria. I've got to put in a quick word for that because it was yummy. And in Malta, we talked a lot about how walkable Valletta and the cities are. Is there a value in renting a car while you're in Malta?
So it really depends where you're staying. Let's say, for example, if you base yourself in Valletta, then I personally wouldn't rent a car just because you've got a bus terminus just outside the city gate. And the main bus terminus will take you all over the island. And it's really inexpensive as well. You can, for example, purchase a bus pass, which is just €21, and that gives you access for a whole week. And that's for Malta and Gozo. So it depends where you're staying. But then, for example, if you've got a family, Peter mentioned Melliha, where we have the longest stretch of sandy beach. That's towards the north of the island. So having a car kind of gives you flexibility. We do have a great transport system, but you don't have that flexibility that you would need if you have a family with children. So depending where you're staying, I would recommend accordingly.
Okay, that's great. Any other questions from anyone? Please unmute and ask away.
I mean, there's so many incredible activities to do. So I guess we already heard that Peter's done the diving, but Louise, what was your favorite activity in Malta? And the same for Daria. What's your favorite adrenaline adventure thing to do? Because I wouldn't be able to choose from everything that you've got to offer.
I personally love the Segway tours. They're so much fun. We did a Segway tour last summer, and they take you through Dingley Cliffs. Dingley Cliffs is one of the highest points in Malta, and the views are stunning. And because it's a very, very quiet village, there are barely any cars. So you're segwaying in the middle of the road pretty much. And you've got stunning views. It's nice and cool because you've got the fresh air, obviously as you're cycling through. But I would definitely recommend the segways. They're a lot of fun and really scenic.
Amazing. I do love a Segway. And it's a workout too for your legs, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
The leaning back to brake and
balance. Yeah.
And Daria, what about your favorite thing?
I think it's very, very difficult to choose just one, but maybe rafting on Cetina River, which is just about half an hour drive further south from Split. You get to this little town called Omiš. And from there, there's plenty of organized tours that take you kayaking along the canyons of Cetina River. So it's very exciting, and it's a lot of fun as well for everyone. You don't have to be super experienced, but still you're going to love it. It's an adrenaline rush.
Wow,
amazing! Thank you.
So I'm looking at the time. We're close to 8 o'clock. Has anyone got any other questions they want to pop in chat or ask now? Otherwise, we'll let you go to the last part of the warm evening. Right, that's brilliant. So it remains for me to thank Daria and Peter and Louise for their amazing presentations. I think I join everyone that has the wanderlust and desire to travel in hoping upon hope that the green list is kind to everyone. But I'd also remind everyone that even if you're not ready to book straight away, there's nothing stopping you whatsoever booking for later in 2021. Particularly, we talked about autumn earlier on, and indeed, even if you're skipping a 2021 holiday, God forbid, and you wanted to book into 2022, this chaos of confusion will be over absolutely by then. So please contact Charitable Travel. We would love to help you with your holiday, remembering that, of course, every booking creates 5% donation value for a charity who can really do with your help. And charities have been as much hit as the travel and tourism industry over the last year and a half. So we hope you think that's a great combination to get the travel you want and help a great cause as well.